If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and hit that like button. It really helps me out. Alright, what's up guys? So today I'm going to make a video talking about every project J. Cole has released over the course of his career. This will include all the albums, all the mixtapes, and of course little bit EPs. We have like 2 or 3 EPs he dropped. I'm going to go over those a little bit. This is not going to be like a ranking video. I've already done that where I rank all of his albums and mixtapes. So this is more like a more in-depth conversation about all the projects, what I think about them, what they mean in his career and his discography. So if you want to see me bet them up against each other and compare them, I would suggest go watch the other video. I'm going to have a link to it. But this one is going to be a bit longer, but I'm going to go into each one a little bit more. Now, J. Cole is, of course, set to drop his new album, The Fall Off, sometime during this year. So this is kind of like a, like a little bit of a nod to that, and then going over his past career so far in anticipation for his new project. All right, we're going to start off with his first mixtape that he released, which was The Come Up. Now, this is a mixtape that he released before he even signed to Roc Nation. He released this in 2007, so it was a long time ago. He released this when he was in New York, right after he got to New York and was going to college there. And it is a really, you can hear it's a first mixtape just because it's not as coherent as his later projects, even as his next mixtape. But it's definitely a good first mixtape. It shows off his skill as an artist, as a rapper. It has some really good storytelling tracks on here, like for example, School Days I remember as being very, story driven. And like he's painting like a vivid picture in your head. So I haven't listened to this project as much as all the other material in his career, just because I feel like the replay value isn't as much on here. It's more of like a demo. I always see it as a demo that he used to like pitch to Jay-Z with, in a sense. So it is an incredibly important piece in his discography, just because it was his first material that he put out, and it was the material that got him recognition from Roc Nation, and that ultimately was the deciding factor in them signing him. But I don't feel like as a standalone project, I think it's his, as I also said in the ranking one, his worst project, but you can't really say that about a first mixtape from an artist. So incredibly important, project and piece of discography, but not the best one. Next one is, of course, The Warm Up, which he released in 2009, so almost 2 years or over 2 years later than The Come Up. And this one is, for some time, it was my favorite J. Cole project. I feel like it is more coherent than the first one. The production on this thing, of course, also mostly being handled by Cole. We also have a production credit from Kanye on here on Just to Get By, which in my opinion is one of the worst beats on here compared to the rest of them, which is funny. But we have stuff like, when we start off with Welcome, is an incredible J. Cole song. Can I Live, for a long time, one of my favorite J. Cole songs. Grown Simba. Lights Please, his first hit that he really had, that kind of like blew him up. Or, for example, Dreams, which he also later in his career also put back references to. Dollar and a Dream 2. Or Ladies, of course. We have Hold It Down, which is an incredible song. If you haven't listened to this mixtape, definitely go check it out. It is really one of Cole's strongest projects, just because song after song, it's not banger after banger, as I would say about the next album, the mixtape that we're going to talk about, but just the songs themselves are so incredibly personal in some aspects, but also we have hits on here like Lights Please, as I said, or Can I Live? So this is an incredible project. It is really in my top J. Cole projects. I listen to this a ton, and this is a very important piece just because it also proved to a label that he could maintain mainstream success. And after this project, he was, of course, then working on his first studio album, which we're going to get to later. So this really paved the way, and he got a lot more recognition with this project too, and that's why it's such a great project. The next thing we're going to talk about is, of course, his third mixtape released in 2010, titled Friday Night Lights. Now this, of course, is by many considered their favorite J. Cole project, and is often said, to should have been his studio album, just because a lot of people don't like his debut studio album, and they always use this as an example of what the first studio album should have been. Now this, of course, in my opinion, is kind of similar to Logic's Welcome to Forever, in that it's just you put the mixtape on, and from the first track through the last track, it's fire. It's banger after banger, hit after hit. Too Deep for the intro is incredible. Before I'm Gone, for some time, my favorite J. Cole song. And then, Villmatic with the Devil in a New Dress beat. Or Enchanted is an incredible song, and the instrumental on that is just, it's impeccable. Then In the Morning featuring Drake, also a huge hit for him, which he also then featured on his debut album. He also, of course, featured Lights Please on that as well. Two-Face, one of his best songs, one of the best storytelling songs. Premeditated Murder, or even the outro with like Sea World and Farewell are incredible. So this, I always say this is like, it's kind of like, I would say the warm-up is a better project, but not in the replay value kind of sense. I feel like the warm-up was in a lot of senses more personal than this project is, although this, of course, also on a lot of songs goes very deep into Cole's writing skills and skills as a songwriter. But this is just banger after banger. You can listen to this from top to bottom. There were weeks that I've just listened to this one project, and I kind of like it was like the soundtrack to my life in a sense. So this is incredible. This is an incredible project. It should have been his first studio album. I kind of agree with that in a sense. So yeah, definitely, if you're a J. Cole fan, you probably heard this, but if you haven't, because you're just like, you hopped on with the new albums, go back and listen to this. You will be surprised by how much material he has in like the deep cuts on this, and how much quality there really is. The next thing I want to talk about is then, of course, his first studio album, Cole World, The Sideline Story, which by many was seen as a disappointment, because Cole was just always like revered for his abilities as a songwriter and as a lyricist, and he kind of not really gave up on those in this project, as of course Lost Ones, Never Told, Rise and Shine, God's Give, Breakdown. They are incredibly detailed songs that go into very serious issues and personal experiences from Cole. But he kind of with the hit Workout, which Nas then also criticized, he kind of let go from a certain aspect that made him get to like the level of respect as a lyricist that he got to before he dropped his debut album. Now this is by no means a bad album, not at all. Dollar and a Dream 3 is incredible. We have hits like Can't Get Enough, Lights Please is on here, In the Morning Again, Mr. Nice Watch, and then of course Workout, which was his biggest hit until like of course Middle Child, I think, then dropped later on, or like 2014 Forest Hills Drive. But the deep cuts on this are way better than those hit songs, and I don't think a lot of people appreciate it for what it is. Sideline Story is an incredible song, and all the ones I mentioned earlier. So I have mixed feelings about this project, as a lot of people, kind of make you feel like you shouldn't like it in a way. And I can see definitely how, for example, Friday Night Lights should have been his debut studio album, but I don't think in any way this is a bad project. If you compare this to a lot of projects that other artists have dropped, or other artists' debut albums, then this is incredible. I do really like this project, and I've listened to this also a lot. So maybe compared with his earlier stuff on the mixtapes and the stuff that was to come, maybe not on par, but nevertheless an incredible project. The next thing we're going to talk about are two little EPs he dropped in the anticipation of his sophomore studio record, Born Sinner. And the EPs I'm talking about are the Truly Yours projects. Yeah, they're the Truly Yours 1 and Truly Yours 2. Between the two, they're both 5 tracks. And between the two, or actually Truly Yours 2 was 6 tracks. My bad. I would say that I like the second one more. I really like the first one too. Can I Holla At You is an incredible song. Or Tears for ODB. But the second one has more replay value. Cole Summer is an incredible track. Kenny Lofton is an incredible track. Chris Tucker also. Cousins is also a track that I listen to a lot, and that really goes into like a deeper, one of those songs that maybe the first studio album was missing. So these are also worth listening to. They are maybe not as important to Cole's discography as his studio albums or his first mixtapes were or are. But if you're a J. Cole fan and you really want to get some new material to listen to, definitely go check these out, because they are really worth the listen. That's all I'm going to say about those, just because they aren't as important in his discography as, for example, the next one, his sophomore studio album, Born Sinner, is. Now, Born Sinner, of course, he had to kind of make up for himself after a lot of people stop believing in him or in his lyrical ability from the first studio album. And Born Sinner, to me, is an incredibly well thought out project. I don't think it is his best project, of course. If you've seen my ranking J. Cole projects video, you know this. But I believe he really took a step back from the first Cole World, the Sideline story, and rethought how he wanted to approach this whole thing. And from the first track, Voluminati, and then also Land of the Snakes, Cole, you can see, wasn't trying to make a big hit. He was more trying to connect with his fans again and kind of tap into that lyrical ability again that he was so, in a sense, famous for, or that he made people like him for on his earlier mixtapes. And of course, we also had hits on here, like, for example, Power Trip or She Knows, which also did incredibly well, but they were at least of a bit more substance than Workout. Power Trip, of course, being a metaphor for music when you listen to the track. So I think from top to bottom, it is a very coherent project. Also, the production on this thing, mostly being handled by Cole himself again, is also it really adds to the replay value of the project. The songs are all in a similar fashion production-wise and, mixing-wise, so that makes it very, very, comfortable to listen to, just because they flow into each other so nice. We, of course, had the whole situation with as I mentioned earlier, after Nas was kind of disappointed in J. Cole after he dropped Workout. J. Cole made a track on this project that's titled Let Nas Down, and talks about how he felt bad, and talks about how the label wanted him to make a hit song or make a song for that and this and that. So really kind of like a cute situation at the time. Nas then later remixed the Let Nas Down song also and like put his spin on it. So it was really like a whole situation going on. I think it also showed Cole that, Nas respected him and that he kind of he made it after this in a sense. Now, the last 5 tracks on Born Sinner are also the Truly Yours 3 EP, but they're when you go buy the album or stream it, they're just in the track list. So this was also, it kind of feels like it belongs to Born Sinner, as do the first Truly Yours, although these feel more like they were really meant to be on the project. We have an incredible outro in a way with Sparks Will Fly, which I believe should be the outro to Born Sinner, although the Born Sinner title track, which is the actual outro to the album, is also really good. So this album, Born Sinner, was kind of Cole proving that he could still make music of substance and that he wasn't just trying to appeal to the mainstream, and that is why it's an incredible project. Now, the next album we're going to talk about is by some considered, of course, his best project to date, which is, of course, 2014 Forest Hills Drive. So this is kind of Cole after his fame. It's after him realizing that money doesn't make him happy. And it really reflects in the album. Stuff like the Love Yours outro is incredibly deep and touching. And of course, there are also memes with before you realize money doesn't make you happy, and it's J. Cole with a big chain on and a Versace sweatshirt during the Born Sinner time, and then it's the 2014 Forest Hills Drive era where he's just wearing a pair of ones and just some sweatshirt. That was really I think it's really accurate to display how this album is important in his discography, in his life, I would say. This is from top to bottom like a story of his life. We start off with him growing up, him going to school, all these adventures there, on Wet Dreams or O3 Adolescence, and then him in a way moving to New York and recounting his music career and all the things he's been through and all the temptations with money and all that. And it's him reflecting on his life and trying to be a better person. And that is why it's an incredibly important project, not necessarily, as I said, in his discography, but for him as a person. And after this, J. Cole just kind of like was like, I'm gonna let y'all do what y'all do in like the music industry. Drake was popping at the time and all these other artists, and he was just like, I'm gonna focus on me. I'm good now. I got the money. I'm gonna see what I can do for my own happiness. And that is why this album is also very important to him. His next album then, For Your Eyes Only, as many of you know, is my favorite J. Cole album, just because it is incredibly personal. It recalls the story of his friend, and he's making this album for his friend's daughter to be played after she's grown up, and it kind of recalls the story of his friend's life leading up to his tragic death. And the whole theme of the album is kind of also in connection with 2014 Forest Hills Drive, but on a smaller scale. I think in 2014 Forest Hills Drive, he's realized that he doesn't need all the money and all the accolades that, you know, are supposed to make you happy on like a fame level. But this is him like telling this his friend's daughter that like what a man her dad was and the values that he would have passed on to her. And those are that even on a small scale, you know, temptations and stuff like money or, you know, expensive clothes, car, all that doesn't really matter. And I think this is important, as I said, because it wasn't Cole in a state of fame that said that, but he's kind of like giving this wisdom onto like a smaller scale. That is why I really think this album is incredible. We also sonically, I really love this. I think from the intro, For Whom the Bell Tolls, up to the last track, For Your Eyes Only, with a runtime of 8 minutes and 50 seconds, but with incredibly touching verses on there, especially the last verse. But then he also showed that he could like make a hit with like folding clothes, for example, which many people criticize for like using such an arbitrary thing as folding clothes. But I think it really shows that he, just like the small things and that really make up life. And She's Mine Part 1 and 2 are incredible. We have Immortal, which is like a really, you know, bars in a sense, and Deja Vu, which is the track that did the best just because it's kind of like it's kind of hit. But still, Deja Vu kind of recalls his friend meeting his future wife. So it all makes sense in a bigger picture. And that is why this album is, I think for me, his most coherent and best album from top to bottom, and the one that I really go back and listen to a lot of it too. When you listen to it, it kind of grounds you in a way. So that is why I love this album, and it really is my favorite J. Cole album. All right, next we're going to move on to his latest studio album, KOD. This is the one that we have right now that is kind of like the last that we've heard from Cole in the way of studio albums. And this, of course, KOD means Kids on Drugs, Killing Our Demons. That was one more meaning, but I forgot that one. But this album was kind of inspired by Cole witnessing the new generation in hip-hop kind of take over. And it's him giving advice to them. He even, you know, sat down with Lil Pump afterwards and had like a discussion with him and talked to him about what was important in his life and what his aspirations were. And it was really cool to witness that, although many people criticize Cole for that and saying that Lil Pump kind of trolled him. But I believe it really shows that Cole cares, and he's not just an old head trying to talk down like, oh, all of the new kids like don't even know what really matters. But he was actually trying to understand them. And on this project, we see him flip a lot of those really popular styles back in 2018, or even to this day, it hasn't changed that much, and try to put his own spin on those. Stuff like ATM, which did pretty well, is a song about money and counting money, but J. Cole does it in a satirical sense, in an ironic sense, and also motivate in the same way. But then he also goes a bit deeper into real life problems like brackets, where he suggests a way of doing taxes. You know, he says, oh, it's 2018, let me pick the things I'm funding from an app on my screen, which is some people criticize it for being so So like surface scratching, which in a way I can agree with. I believe Cole can go deeper with stuff he does, and he has showed that in the past. He's shown that he's like someone that really thinks about things. But still, this album, I believe, is one of his weaker projects, just because, as I said, it's kind of surface scratching with the topics that it's talking about, but it still conveys some sort of meaning and some sort of message, which, for example, his first project, called The Sideline Story, didn't do in like a bigger picture type of way. So this album is kind of like him, reflecting on everything that's changed, also on Photograph, with like how someone falls in love just through a picture on Instagram, and him trying to understand that or reflect on that. And that is why I also pretty much enjoy this album. I have the signed vinyl here that I got back when it was released, and I still enjoy putting it on just because the production on this thing is also so good. For Cole does an incredible job producing every track on here. So yeah. Those are my thoughts up to now. We, of course, just got the Lewis Street EP with The Climb Back and The Lion King on Ice. I was also a fan of that. I think The Climb Back was better than The Lion King on Ice, although I liked the hook on The Lion King on Ice. But The Climb Back was just produced really well, while The Lion King on Ice wasn't that good. So yeah, I'm a fan of that. I don't think it was a true EP. It wasn't meant as an EP. It's just 2 singles that he released as the first 2 lead singles to The Fall Off, which we are expecting this year. But he hasn't told us a release date yet, as he's still working on it, and that's fine. I'm still hyped for it. I'm hoping you are too. Let me know what your thoughts on all the projects are in the comments, and if you disagree with me, if you agree with me. And I also just created a Twitter account. Go follow that. Link is in the description if you want to like hear more like thoughts and more interacting with me. So that'd be really cool. Other than that, if you've liked this video and watched it to the end, I would appreciate if y'all would subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button to beat the YouTube algorithm for me. And I'll see you on the next one. You'll have an amazing day.